So we really liked the raised bed that we built last year, so we decided to build another one. I made a few plan changes to make it simpler. Miter corners are really cool, but they're really not necessary and they're a lot more complicated. So I'm only going to miter the top part of it. My circular saw and I are still becoming friends, so I use the speed square to help me guide it through the cuts. But it's real important for me to be accurate on this because I'm going to cut all the parts first and then assemble it later. So there's not going to be any room for adjusting if I happen to make a cut incorrect. So accuracy is going to be very important. I have a radial arm saw that I love. It's just like the one my dad has. I learned to do woodworking with my dad on the radial arm saw. This one is set up very accurately. So in here I'm measuring for two different cuts. So I've got to cut on the proper side of each one of these lines. So I get two pieces out of one session with the saw. Works pretty conveniently unless I mess up. But I did it right this time. They all came out the right length. Next, I set up a stop block so that I could cut corner posts all to exactly the same length. If these things are off a little bit, everything's off, and I really don't want to have to fight with that later on. And there's all the parts piled up, ready for the next step. I use this end coat sealer that is designed for or intended for sealing the ends of pressure treated lumber when you cut them to length. I don't find the color is all that bad. It's a nice color. It goes on really quick. It's easy. It dries pretty quick. By the time I'm done doing one part of it, I can flip them over and do another part. And then I end up being able to coat everything in one session. It's very forgiving. It's not very elegant, but it's a planter bed. This is the worst part of the whole project. I really don't like cutting this metal. It gets sharp edges, so I trim them off. It's really hard for them to be exactly accurate, or at least it's hard for me to figure out how to do it. So I pile them all up and I cut them all in one big pile to the right length. That makes it a lot easier. I need to make these corner brackets. This is one of the design changes. And I decided, I'll pocket drill them. I've got this pocket drill tool. It's a little fiddly, but it does a good job once you figure out how to make it work for you. But I line them all up, get them in the right spot. They don't have to be exactly in the consistent spot, just what'll work for me. And there they are. Now I'm going to make these corners. I'll pre-drill the holes because they're kind of near the edge and I want to get them in the right spots. So I just drill them with 3 screws. I clamp them together to make sure that they are lined up perfect. And I have 4 corner posts. Well, that's one, but I have 4. Now on to assembly. This is one of the rims that will go around it. I lift it off the floor a little bit with those pieces so that I can get the drill motor into them, or the driver in there, and screw them together each with 2 screws. And I use that clamp to make sure that the tops and bottoms are lined up, because it's real important that it's all accurate, and it's practice. Joan's helping out. It's good to see her participating in this process. And then I'll build another one exactly like it. I'll build it right on top of it because I want them to be mirrors or clones of one another. So I'll just go through the exact same process that I went through before. I think I'm using 3.5-inch Spax screws. They're pretty nice, broad-headed screw to hold them together. But use whatever you want. Could probably just nail it together. It is, after all, a planting bed. Not a real glamorous life. I want to make sure that it's square. It was a little bit off. It wasn't perfect, but I corrected that as I put everything together. We'll prop it up on it, make sure everything looks like it's how it needs to be. It is. So get it out of the way so I can attach each of these corner posts. Last time these were all a piece of flashing, a piece of metal flashing, and that was very frustrating. This makes it a lot simpler. At least it's, in my mind, it's a lot simpler. Screwed them all in. It was a little bit challenging. They're kind of close. If you do this, leave a little bit more space from the corner to try to get the driver in. Now putting the top rim on. Just screwed all the corners together, clamped it down at one edge so I could get it all to line up, because the tolerance buildup kind of makes it a little out of square, but you know, 40 screws later and it's in pretty good shape. Now I'll turn it upside down and we'll start putting the metal in. I learned my lesson on this. Last year I cut them to 18 inches, which is what that gap is from the top rim to the bottom, and they didn't line up exactly right. So this time I cut them at 17.5 inches, and that made them give me a little bit more room for error on them. You can see how there's a little bit of a gap, and I think it turned out just right, just like I wanted to. So we'll flip it over. I'll get some help from Joan. She'll magically appear right here. She'll help me put it over there, and it's done. It's ready to put in the ground. Hey, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.